Just thought I'd try and film a video to show how I do the custom mesh colliders, which I saw on the Squeegee Dino toy video when I was having issues with box colliders in Unity that would, rather than following the object, they'd be coming in at a funny angle, and no matter what I did it just wouldn't work. And then I came across this video about custom colliders. So I've got a cylinder rail, a flat bar, a ledge with a slight kink, and then a flat box with a bevel edge, just to show the different methods to make the colliders. So if we go for the cylinder rail first, as it's closest to me, you're in object mode, and then if you tab into edit mode and face select, I don't know why it's on loop cut. Right, anyway, face select. Let me zoom in a bit. There's two ways you can do it with the rails, the cylinders. Generally, I like to do the top edge of a rail and the whole set of faces for coping. So this is your middle line down your rail. That is the very center top. So what I normally do is go into face and click 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So you've got 6 on the top. You can use more, it's up to you really. Like, I normally try and get my spline like right down the center of the rail, but you just shift and select all your faces like you would any other time. And while in edit mode, you shift D, press enter, press P, selection, and now you've created a new face. And then when you tab out of edit mode and you click on object, parent, object, now you can see the red is the new face you've created, which is going to be the collider, and then you've got the orange, which is the parent object. So if you come to cylinder.001, that's your collider, which moves independently, and then you have your parent, which moves the collider and the object. And it's pretty much that simple. So when you get into Unity, you don't actually have to mess around with adding box colliders and things. You can just put a mesh on the parent and the child, and you only need a spline computer on the child then, rather than putting one on the parent and the child. So for a flat bar, you don't need to add a loop cut. If it's small like this and you're going to have the spline down the center, you can just tab into edit mode, make sure you're on face select again, shift the 3 faces, and then shift D, enter, P, selection, tab out of edit mode, object, parent, object, and then you've got your rail then with your new custom mesh collider. So if you've got a beveled edge, it's the same process as the rail. You decide which set of faces you want. I normally do the top and go, I don't know, 4 round maybe, depending on how many faces you've got, to be honest. If you've got loads, then you just do the ones you want, but it depends where you want. Like normally, like you'd want the spline up here on the top, but I just add those just to make sure that it locks on. So the same process, you've selected all your faces, you go shift D, enter, P for selection, tab out of edit mode, object, parent, object, and then obviously if you want to do the other side, see I've got more faces on here, I might shift select these 4. Do you know what, I'll do 3 just to be different, and then again shift D, enter, P, selection, tab out of edit mode, object, parent, object. And now you've got in this object, which is cube.003, you've got 2 custom colliders already set up, ready to go. And it literally takes no time at all to do it in Blender. Now this, because we haven't got any bevels and we haven't got any cylinders, we haven't got any coping or anything like that, you have to add a loop cut to these. So you've got the smallest edge that is going to be the mesh collider, because if you selected this whole face, he's going to be wanting to like grind across this surface, which will look really weird. So select your object, tab into edit mode, loop cut. You don't have to be precise, but add a loop there, add a loop cut along here. You probably need to zoom in here. Obviously come back off loop cut, shift, when we're in face select mode, shift these faces. It becomes a bit weird when you've got a lot of edges as well. So now you've got your selections, the same process, shift D, enter, P, selection, tab, object, parent to object. And then you just do the same process if you want to do the other side grindable, loop cut. But because we made a loop around the whole object, you only have to do the loop on the top for this section. Maybe about there. So come out of loop cut, face select, select these faces. This is the tedious part when you've got a lot of faces to select, but D, enter, P, selection, tab out of edit mode, object, parent, object, and then that is all of your objects with colliders on already. It's dead simple when you get the hang of it. Like, you can literally just go through the keys without even looking anymore and just be like, done. It's these ones that hold you back. It's because you've got like 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 faces on each side, but if you get in nice and close, you can just like do that, and then it's a lot quicker. So I'm going to export this and then load it up into Unity. Export, FBX, custom mesh, desktop. I'll put it custom mesh because I've got another one. We'll put today's date. I nearly put 2019 then. Export that. I've already got Unity open, and I've already added my SXL, my asset bundle browser, and my Dreamteck. I've left the directional light. I've put it at 2000 because we're not going to have any textures, so it'll be hard to see anything or distinguish where lines are, so you end up just like riding into stuff. Me fog and me post-process volume, which isn't actually going to do anything. Right, let me go and get me FBX. It'll be in here somewhere in my desktop. There we go. Just going to drop that in my scenes folder. Right, where's it gone? I swear I just dropped that in my scenes folder. That's strange. Desktop. Where is it there? Right, there we go. I don't think it dropped in before. Did it go in somewhere else? No? Strange. Because I don't know how other people do it, but I always drop them in my scenes and then load them in and then zero them all off. So now we've got... I always forget the rotation keys when I've come out of Blender. We've got all our items here. We've got the geyser here. And now if you come in and click on, say, cube, which is the flat bar, you've now got your collider already set up. And then if we go over here to this one, you can see them you've already got your collider set up, so you don't have to set them up when you get into Unity. You can do as much as possible in Blender and then bring it to Unity. Because if you do your texturing in Blender as well, you can just use Unity for the exporting and the splines, really, and the tagging. So we'll do this rail first. I keep wanting to press delete to zoom in, but I don't think that works on this. I think it's just Blender. So we've come onto the cylinder, and then we're going to add a mesh collider to the parent, a mesh collider to the cylinder child, and as you can see, we're on the very top edge of where that mesh is we created. And then I'm going to add a spline computer. Make sure we're on linear. Sometimes me Unity wants to like zoom around at 50 miles an hour, but I'm just going to do this rough. So I'm going to add that one there. Zoom in a bit. Now I'm assuming you know how to do the splines already, but you can see what I'm clicking on anyway, so just making sure they're up the right way. So we've got one there. I'm going to add grindable. I've made very rudimentary tags here, so it's just concrete and metal, and that's not metal. That's not concrete. It's metal. So now when you've come into Unity and you've added your mesh collider to your parent, your mesh collider and your spline computer to your child mesh, and you've added your grindable layer and whatever tag you're using, you can turn mesh render off and it will end up like these jaggedy lines. But if you turn mesh render off, I've noticed if you turn it off before you've added your tags, the skate will hit it and just fly off into oblivion. I don't know why, but if you add the spline computer, the mesh, you set up the splines, then you add your grindable layers and your tags, then you turn mesh render off, you normally don't have a problem. So that's that one. We will come and do this beveled edge. So we're going to put a mesh on the parent, open it up and do the right side child first, and put a mesh, then a spline computer, change it to linear, which I forget a lot of the time. I think I need to change the zoom out speed, to be honest, but I'm only doing this dead rough, so I'm going to put this along here. Obviously you can take more time with it. Make sure they're up the right way. Then I'm going to grindable concrete and then move on to your next one. And then mesh collider, spline computer, linear, put it about there. That would probably do it. Oop, zoomed in a bit too far there. Now if you want to end the spline so it doesn't make any more, you right click then left. When you put that one down, you right click and left click and it would get rid of any more. I'm not even going to bother to check there, alright, but they're going to be anyway, aren't they? So another grindable, another concrete. We will turn mesh render off for these. We'll go to our flat bar when we've not zoomed in, 500 miles. Is that the cube? Which one's the cube? That one. This is the confusing thing because I've got cube and cube 001, so I could add a spline, but I like doing it in order, say mesh then spline rather than spline mesh. And then spline. Did I add that on the fucking... Let me remove that. I thought I was in the child, but I wasn't. So mesh on the child. Spline on the child. Linear. Now this one is going to go straight down the middle. I don't always put it to the end, because sometimes if you go on the end it puts it on the floor, and if you don't realise and you go to skate and you're like, why is me skater like flinging off all over the place? So then grindable metal, turn off mesh render last, then it's just this one. For quickness I'm only going to do this right side, so mesh on the parent, open him up, right on that one, mesh, then spline computer, change it to linear, which I often forget, and leave it on that Catman whatever it's called. Put that about there. Let me just double check that they're in the right place, because sometimes they have a tendency to bugger off. Yeah, it's alright. Grindable, concrete, turn mesh render off. Now these should, when I've put a mesh collider on this so we don't just fall through the floor, mesh collider, create empty, rename, spawn point, add component, spawn point, new script, create. Now where's this going to disappear to? Zero, zero, zero. Right. We have it go back to about there. It doesn't really matter where it goes, to be honest. So now, hopefully, if it's worked, which it normally does, sometimes you do have issues because, you know, technology and all that, then these all should be grindable, except for that side, because I couldn't be bothered to do that one, because it's the same process as that. Tools, end up massive. Right, well, let's call it 21 or whatever that symbol was. I'm just going to load up Skater XL, because that map shouldn't take long to export. It should be done dead fast, because there's nothing to it really. Now, they doing it with like this method apparently uses more resources, so if you've got a massive map, like I said, for people running lower systems it could put more strain on. But I suppose that's just the same as any game, isn't it? If you try and run like Warzone high settings on a low spec PC, it's just not going to work, is it? Just wait for this to load and then see what happens. For ages I didn't realise, like, I would turn mesh render off first and then I would come to grind and it would just like splat all over the place. So it was just a case of trial and error. And then I think in the end it turned out you have to turn mesh render off last. You don't have to turn mesh render off at all, you can leave it on. But I would imagine if you turn it off, it's not rendering the whole mesh, so surely that would make it less intensive. But we shall see. Yeah, custom mesh 21. Are we going to spawn into the abyss? No, we actually spawned in the right place. When I can get on. And then they just grind like normal. Obviously, when I can get on. I think I've completely missed that. I'm not the best at this game. I generally don't play it. I just end up making maps and then never actually playing anything. That was weird. But yeah, they're all grindable, and it's so much quicker than any other method. And you get obviously you occasionally get issues, but you get issues with this game all the time anyway. Like sometimes you'll just randomly spawn through an object like that. Did I put concrete on that rail? Yeah, I think I did. But that is basically how you use custom colliders in Blender and Unity. I'm just going to fix that rail a minute because I don't know what the hell's going on. I'm sure I didn't use... Did I use thingy for it? No, it's metal. That's weird. I'm going to turn mesh render back on that particular item just to test to see whether the mesh render being off is what's causing the board to transfer through the rail. So delete previous version. Just as like an experiment really to see what it's like. But as you can see with this, when I can get on the bloody thing, you have no issues with kinks. Because he just went up there nice and smooth. Right, that's probably exported now into... Yeah, stop. Right, so let's go over to this little rail and try and do that flip board and see if we transfer through the rail again. A little bit at the end. And that's basically it. Hopefully it actually helps someone to use custom meshes rather than messing around with bloody colliders and all that rubbish. If you have any issues, just let me know and I'll try and walk you through it. But as you can see, it is dead simple. Like, I will literally just come on here, not highlight everything for some reason. We'll go cube. We won't make it like skatable height because we're not actually going to do that. We will just zoom that out, go that down there, go loop cut for this. So obviously shift when it's in face select, shift D, enter P, selection, tab out, object, parent, and it's literally that simple. Just whenever you make an object, if you obviously if you use a lot of bevels, then you're sorted, aren't you? Or a lot of round rails, you don't even have to do loop cuts. But yeah, that's that. That's how I've been doing it. If you want to give it a try and let me know if it does add any extra resources to FPS loss, loading times, stutter, anything like that. Just let me know.